up? Welcome to City Group. My name is Kayla and I serve as a student director at South Tampa, and I am so excited to be here with all of you guys today. I don't know about you guys, but City Group is the favorite part of my week. I love just hanging out with all of you guys and really just going into that small group time. And so I'm super excited today to dive into what we have to talk about with our Bless Up collection. But before we do that, I just wanted to welcome a special group of people in the room, and that is all of our first-time students. If it is your first time to City Group, or maybe the first time in like kind of a long time because, school, homework, all that stuff, we're just so glad that you're here. We're so excited that you're taking time out of your Sunday to hang out with us. And just a little bit of context, we're going to dive into just a really quick lesson and then break into small groups and really talk about how we can apply this to your own lives. So I really encourage you, if it's your first time, you've been coming forever, really lean into this moment, really take notes, pay attention. Don't scroll through Instagram, even though it's super easy to just take out your phone and do that. But I really encourage you guys, really focus on what God has for you in these next couple of minutes. Because like I said, I'm excited to continue this collection, Bless Up. And we're going to be talking about something today that honestly has been a game changer in my life. Because here's the thing, when I was growing up, I really liked TVs and movies, and I was convinced I was going to be a movie star, right? But I had to practice being a movie star, obviously. So I was one of those kids, it's you're in the car and you're playing some dramatic music and you're just staring out the window and you're like, oh my gosh, this is my time to shine. I'm in the most dramatic part of the movie. And I remember this one time specifically, I was on vacation actually in Hawaii, a dream come true. And instead of looking out all this nice stuff on our car ride, there's oceans and mountains and it's so pretty. I instead took the time to plug in my headphones, because that was before AirPods existed. I plugged my headphones into my iPod mini. Y'all probably don't even know what an iPod is, much less an iPod mini. And I started blasting this Never Shout Never song. And I was just staring out the window, pretending I was in a movie and my boyfriend had just broken up with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, my life is terrible. And the thing is, I was missing out on this paradise around me because I was so focused on this made up problem because I was in a movie, And the thing is, I feel a lot of us could be experiencing paradise or some crazy experience, but we're stuck focused on a problem. And in that instance, it was a made up problem. But I remember actually this one time in high school where I was going through a real problem. My real boyfriend had just broken up with me, and I was so upset. I stayed home from school to cry all day and watch Titanic. And I don't know why I picked that movie. It just felt right, And I had small group that same day after school, and I told them, I kind of lied a little bit, and I was like, hey guys, I'm not feeling well. I can't come to small group. And they did the sweetest thing ever. They showed up to my house. They brought my Starbucks drink with a cake pop. And y'all, in high school, I devoured cake pops. It was the best, sweetest thing that anyone had ever done for me. And instead of thanking them and going to small group, I was just oh, thanks. And I shut the door and I went back to crying and finished Titanic. And I wish in that moment that I would have taken my eyes off of my problems and stupid boy that broke up with me and focused on the good community I had around me. I wish I would have shown up to small group, and I wish I would have taken my focus off of my problems and onto God. And I really wish that I would have had a Paul and Silas moment in the Bible in Acts chapter 16. This crazy story, right? So Paul and Silas end up at this temple, and there's this lady, and they end up casting a demon out of her. It's super crazy. But the even crazier part is that people were actually mad that Paul and Silas did this, because this lady, because she, was going through this thing with this demon, she was making a lot of money for this group of guys, fortune telling and doing all these crazy stuff that she could only do because there was a demon inside of her. And Paul and Silas cast out this demon, which should have been a good thing, but these guys were so upset because they just costed them a lot of money by doing this. And so they end up telling on them, they end up beating Paul and Silas up, and it's kind of crazy, And that brings us to Acts chapter 16, verse 23. It said, after they had been severely flogged, that does not sound good, they were thrown into prison, and the jailer was commanded to guard them carefully. In verse 24, it says, when he received these orders, he put them in the inner prison and fastened their feet in their stocks. And I was reading this, and I was like, whoa. Inner prison sounds way more intense than a normal prison. so obviously I Googled it. And Google says that the inner cell was the worst of the worst when it came to prison. Not only was it like super crowded, it was more dark than like the outer normal prison. And it was actually designed to like torture the people who were in the prison enough to where they would confess whatever they had been thrown in prison for. And what's crazy about this is that Paul and Silas were thrown in there for doing something good, for helping out this lady, and they were actually put in an environment that was designed to make them get stuck in their circumstances, to focus on why they were in prison. And I think some of us might be stuck in our own inner prison, focused on our circumstances. But despite their circumstances, Paul and Silas make a decision that is crucial to their blessed up moment. In Acts chapter 16, verse 25, it continues on by saying, "About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. And suddenly there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. At once, all the prison doors flew open, and everyone's chains came loose." Paul and Silas found freedom from their circumstances by focusing not on their circumstances, but on their God. And I wonder what freedom is waiting for you on the other side of your circumstances by just changing your perspective, by focusing on God. And because changing our perspective can really change our experiences, and we see that in Paul and Silas' story. And I bet you're like, "Kayla, that like sounds cool and it's a really dramatic moment in the Bible, but I don't think that's for me. I don't even know how to change my circumstances. That class is too crazy. My friend group is too messed up. My parents won't stop fighting, and I just can't focus on anything else." But Paul and Silas' story actually shows us 3 ways we can shift our perspective and make it through our problems. And the first thing is to pray through our circumstances. You know, the verse tells us that they were in that jail praying to God. But the story also tells us that there were other prisoners in there with them. And I wonder how easy it would have been for them to turn around to all these other prisoners and talk about how smelly and gross and dark it was in that prison, how they didn't deserve to be there, and complain about their circumstances. But instead, they take this moment, instead of talking about their circumstances and complaining, they talk to God about their circumstances. And I think that is crucial when we're walking through a tough time, to not focus on, talking to our friends about how terrible it is, but talking to God. 1 Peter 5:7 says to cast all of our anxieties on him because he cares for us. Because he cares for us, we can take our cares to him in confidence, knowing that he's going to listen and he's going to take care of us. And so that brings us to my second point, and that is to worship through our circumstances. And there are a lot of different ways that you can worship, but Paul and Silas actually worship by singing hymns, songs to God, praises to God. And I've had such crucial shifts in my circumstances by sitting in my car, blasting that New Elevation worship song, some Maverick City, and blast it. I start singing because I'm not a good singer, and probably no one can hear me in my car. So I just start singing, and it really helps me take my focus off of my problems and onto God and onto these things that he's done for me, all these praises that I can be praising him for. And I think that, worship is so crucial in changing our perspective, because it's really hard to focus on your problems when you're singing about how great God is. And that brings us to our third point. And because here's the great thing about Paul and Silas' story, it doesn't stop with Paul and Silas, because it continues in verse 27. It says, "The jailer woke up, and when he saw the prison doors open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself because he thought the prisoners had escaped. But Paul shouted, 'Don't harm yourself, we're all here.' And the jailer called for lights, rushed in, and fell trembling before Paul and Silas." I want you to pay attention to this. Verse 30, it says, "He then brought them out and asked, 'Sirs, what must I do to be saved?' They replied, 'Believe in the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved, you and your household.' They spoke the word of the Lord to him and to all the others in his house. At that hour of the night, the jailer took them and washed their wounds. Immediately, he and all his household were baptized. The jailer brought them into his house and set a meal before them. He was filled with joy because he had come to believe in God, he and his whole household." Which brings me to our third point, to just share after your circumstances. I think it's super important to just, when you're walking through tough times, remember, first of all, you're not alone. There are other people walking through these things the same things that you are. And so when you make it to the other side, because you will make it to the other side, take a moment and just remember all that God has done for you and share it with other people. The jailer and his whole entire household were affected because Paul and Silas took a moment to shift their perspective. And I can just imagine, they're at the jailer's house, they're making dinner, getting ready, and Paul and Silas are like, bro, you will never believe what just happened to me. We were stuck in jail, and instead of focusing on our problems, we shifted our perspective. There was this crazy earthquake, our chains were broken, and we experienced freedom because of the way that we worship God. And that was enough to save the whole entire household, not just the jailer, but the whole entire household. And I think that's so encouraging that there are people on the other side of your freedom waiting to experience the same freedom that you are. And so we're about to go into small group and really just unpack this a little bit, talk about how we can apply it to our own lives. And so I encourage you, the same that we do every week, to show up and open up about your problems. Really be real, because these conversations could change your circumstances, change your perspective, and really change your week. And so I'm so excited to hear about all of the life change that happens in these small group conversations. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll see y'all later.